Everyone, welcome to the Isekai DnD recap. What's Isekai DnD? Well, it's a campaign run by Rustage, played by Briggs, Daniel Greene, Tekking, and Schwabity. In this story, a nerd, loan shark janitor, and dude bro get transported into a fantasy realm and must find their way back. This is part 2, by the way, so watch part 1 before this. Anyway, let's go! After the dastardly Da Vinci was dealt with, what else for Shark to do next but to create a new drug by the name of Scrub? And who else to employ in distributing that drug than children? Along with a recently reunited with Brick and Douglas. In the meantime, Norman initiated his relationship with the snake woman at last. Just not the kind of snake he was looking for. Snow and him shared dinner together. The most important topic of conversation being their infinite money, which Norman let slip. The night ended with a kiss on the cheek, to our none the wiser wizard. After a quick reconvening with Wellington, the Skellington pointed the group towards their next holy site, the Sulcan Desert. So, leaving Finn with him, our party ventured towards the remaining towers. The border of Vestoria and Solzemlia was eventually crossed, and they soon entered into the Eclipse, a bar where a certain arm wrestling champion was residing. Boneslaw proved his might upon defeating the entire party in the sport one after another, and soon agreed to join them in hopes of discovering even tougher opponents. They knew the general direction of the Wizard Tower, but they needed specifics, and a guide to navigate through the harsh deserts. That's where the mayor comes in. In their discussion for a guide with Junior, the mayor, they ended up promoting her to branch manager of all Sulcan otherworldly brew, and in turn they received her best guide, an avid researcher of the Nakahir, creatures who guard that holy site, Zarina. Hours of travel later, and the party arrived at the obelisk. Luckily, with their necklaces, though a language barrier was in play, getting passage inside was of no issue. When Norman inserted his necklace into its place, the wizard was pleased to discover the snake goddess of his dreams. So what else for Normie to do but propose? Unfortunately, he was rejected as the god had already caught wind of their plan to kill them all. Unfortunate. A great battle was had that day, and unfortunately, like most great battles, civilians were caught in the crossfire. Boneslaw's arena and the Nakahiran bartender would pass away on the battlefield. Oh, never mind, it was just the bartender actually. We had a double revivify thanks to Anthony and Cody pulling out some clutch spells. Anyway, screw that guy. Next up, let's find that rumored bard necklace dog. Before that, though, they stopped at the Eclipse again for the night. Cody and Littlefeather got it on. Norman drank his lack of snake waifu-filled sorrows away. Shark pondered his life on the roof, and Anthony attempted to find some normalcy in a sleeping bag on the outskirts of town, far away from the bird sex, edgy loan sharks, and horny teenagers. The next day finally came, and from Junior they learned the dog's location. The capital city of Novencia, whom was adopted by the king himself. Upon reaching the Golden City, it didn't take long for this slipshod heist to be put into motion. Cody transformed into a bird and crashed through a window. Norman and Anthony snuck past the castle dwellers with invisibility, leaving the shark and Boneslaw to distract and attack the guards, and attack they did. Okay, this was more akin to genocide. A countless number of guards were slaughtered that day. Even a child was caught in the duo's massacre, which resulted in a bit of PTSD re-emerging from the shark's days in the war, who was flashing in and out of consciousness back to the trenches with his brother. Boneslaw, following the shark's lead, would even end up going a bit murder crazy as well. So, while a shell-shocked shark was re-experiencing his traumas, the other guys were successfully mid-kidnapping the dog, which turned out to be Hachiko of Japanese legend. And also, they rescued a surprised-to-see Yogg, who had also been caged up by the king. After Cody made the king a toad, they escaped into the Golden Sewers, Shark on Anthony's shoulders along the way to what seemed like a rat nightclub. Thus, they bought some skin suits, partook in some holy site location questioning, learned of the university's potential knowledge, hit them up, learned of a secret passageway underneath the school which holds a key to the slot of a magic relic, a relic which was stolen thousands of years ago by a sand giant located north of the city. Only thing is, everyone the professor sent to find said relic never returned. But there's a first for everything, right? So, Yogg, Boneslaw, Littlefeather, Hachiko, and the boys ventured off into the desert. En route, the shark at last opened up to Norman about his traumas, the fact of violence being a chronic constant throughout his life, seeming to chase him no matter what he did. So, with some encouraging words from the wizard, the shark promised from this day forward not to kill a single other soul. Also, a pretty big lore drop here. The beginning of the shark story wasn't in fact a dark alleyway, but on his way to the loony bin. Alas, that scene all played out inside of his mind. And then they finally reached it, the fabled stone giant of Corpus. Guided by the blood force, the group witnessed the poverty in the legs slowly disappear as their elevator ride took them to the literal higher class housing in the torso. Stopping to grab a bite at "Yummy in my tummy!" They witnessed a foiled assassination attempt on Councilman Loeb, the assassin which was arrested for his actions. Then the buddy of the assassin led our group outside to explain the situation. Eventually they met Nerve, leader of the system, a rebel force whose rather chaotic goal was to destroy Corpus by removing its heart, which just so happened to be that magical artifact the Brewers needed. Seeing as how their goals aligned, another heist was to be had with the system's help. A heist involving the murder of the 4 bigwigs of Corpus: Chairman Cerebrum, General Bone, Councilman Loeb, and Pulmo, who each held one key which unlocked the heart's chambers when combined. Before any of them realized what was happening, swiftness was key. So first target, General Bone. Disguised as Loeb, Anthony led the way to the hand where Bone was patrolling. Once arrived, a good old smackdown was played out, and in seconds the general had fallen, slain by Anthony. Wait, where'd the shark go? Oh, he left mid-fight to share a drink with an enemy Blood Force member where he revealed his full legal actual name, and it's Wilhelm Jarvis Jr.! Wilhelm opened up to Julag about his current internal crisis of desiring to kill but realizing it's wrong, not dissimilar to an addiction, which the lawyer in training attempted to help him out with. Julag explained his outlook on life simply boiled down to leaving his world having helped more than hurt. The shark agreed and left his weapons behind, edging ever closer to that monk status. Then everyone mapped back up and decided on their next target: Pulmo. Through the lungs. The stained glass of the church shone through as our group brutally defeated the holy woman via dropping a chandelier onto her body, crushing, burning, and piercing her skin. When she could no longer resist, Anthony put the fire out and they tied her up. Oh yeah, during this fight, Wilhelm's real name was finally revealed to the rest of the group. After that battle, Wilhelm would hand the sulking soldier another gift, this time all of his money. With that, along with Wilhelm's hair and clothes being burned to a crisp mid-battle, he took the church's robes for himself and his monk transformation would be complete. Well, his outward appearance at least. And altered his name to the Pitbull. In pursuit of their final keys, they duked it out in the brain with the brains of Cerebrum and Loeb. The former of which was slain by Little Feather of all people, and Loeb by himself of all people. All in a quick 6 seconds. Nice. That might be wrong, actually. Don't quote me on that. Before extracting the artifact, Cody made an announcement to evacuate the innocents of Corpus. And once mostly everyone had escaped, they took the gargantuan golem's heart. Evacuating in a far too large hamster wheel of a chamber, the 10 employed the utmost teamwork to help as they blasted through the hardened stone as the giant crumbled to pieces. Soon after, while assisting everyone to build a temporary camp for the night's rest, a giant sandworm attacked them, but they beat it. As they do. Also, turns out Pulmo survived the chaos and soon left on a pilgrimage of her own in hopes of convening with her god of worship. That night, Julag denounced Wilhelm for his child-run crime syndicate, so he decided to be done with that life as well and rid himself of it. And soon the sun rose again when Cody discovered the still-alive, slowly pulsating brain of Corpus, which soon stopped pulsating not long after he found it. So he reincarnated Corpus with the reincarnate lottery, landing on that unnamed race which possessed the cloth to make Eeks. All those episodes ago, the newly named Corey's mind was a vague recollection of distant and foggy memories. So to celebrate his new life, they spent the morning with him playing a mini golf course of Anthony's creation. Finally, the now 1,000-strong entourage arrived at Novencia, whom the Brewers with their infinite cash paid for the housing of. Then Julag brought up a romance with Wilhelm he thought was blossoming, but the Sulcan was sulkinly rejected. Yeah, sure. Causing the crestfallen man to sulk his way to the capital to continue his studies. Everyone else from the main party stayed back to assist with the refugee situation, while our main 4 and Hachiko snuck into the academy's basement to insert the artifacts. Through the door, they found a stage with bleachers surrounding it, and at the back of the room was the barred holy site. Hachiko inserted his pendant into the fitting slot, and out came the Hound. Then the bard god challenged the 5 to a rap battle where they unanimously, besides Norman, secured the win! Once exiting the Hound's arena, they were greeted by the university professor with a letter containing a subpoena to arrive in court for unlawful corporate takeover, associative charges of murder and theft. Oh no. Taking a few brewers with them in the form of Boneslaw, Hachiko, and Little Feather, as well as Yag and Corey, they then set off for the capital of Vestoria. A newly decorated one, in fact, all rebranded to adorn Snow's signature colors and name. Via Wellington, they learned Washington, the country's new treasurer, chief justice, and many other roles, had become smitten with their branch manager, which resulted in what we see here. To prepare for the court case, they purchased some suits. Here, Douglas Rat's employee informed them he was forced to peddle scrub and his whole life fell apart. Oops. Speaking of scrub, Pitbull split off from the group to find Jesus. Literally. And the two got high as shit while indulging in the way of the monk. Apparently. Oh, and Pitbull found out there that Snow would be the judge. Then everyone reconvened at Wellington's house for a meeting where Anthony, while experimenting with his mechanical necklace, attempted inserting his own blood into the thing, and poof! Gone was Anthony, and in was Antron, a distant descendant in the form of a cyborg lawyer, brought into being by the foretelling of Anthony's cunning upon his return to Earth, setting forth Anthony's bloodline into a great prophecy turned religion, thousands of years in the making for this single court case. Later, a crestfallen Julag spent the night at a bar, drinking his sorrows away, comforted by Antron to no avail. The next morning, though, it was time for courts, but even through their greatest efforts, even through Antron's existence, would it not be enough? As this case was already closed from the beginning. A master plan puppeteered by Snow to attain greater power. Ownership of the brewery. Though, wait, the next in line should go to Hops' son then, Brick, right? Wrong! Brick is dead, assassinated by Snow's lackeys, but pinned on our party. Meaning the next in line would go to the next highest position in the company, which just so happens to be Snow's position. The no longer owners of the formerly known as Otherworldly Brewery sulked away from the adjourned court. But seeing as how this poor cyborg's entire bloodline had just become moot, they decided to show him how to have fun before his 24-hour limit was up, taking him all around town to give him the best day this little cyborg could ever ask for. Later that night, Pitbull continued his training with Jesus and admitted he was finally able to confront and atone for his sins starting today. And finally, officially became a level 1 monk. And so they grabbed Jesus and stepped once more into the forest they'd not been under since they were level 1 noobs. En route, they met a mushling, a mushroom man, who directed them towards the, in his words, wretched Noblin territory. Oh boy, everyone, looks like we've got ourselves a hashtag race war. Arriving at Nobopolis, they met Smog again! And he led them to their king, Chief Crunkle, or I guess their chief. And luckily, he'd tell them where the holy site is. Only in video game fashion, they had to do a small favor for him. But first, a party. They got sloshed, so Pitbull attempted to convince Crunkle to settle things peacefully, where he dropped the bomb of the mushlings murdering his son, and yeah. Everywhere the Noblins go, they are hated, and just when they thought they'd finally found somewhere to be at peace, away from the rest of the world, they would suffer an attack from the mushlings for staking their claim on the consecrated forest. The next day, they did actually convince the Noblins to at least let them try acting as emissaries of peace before things got all bloodbathy. So they grabbed Smog and on the way met an arrow-riddled Sir Button, soon to be healed by Cody and berated by Smog, obviously not helping things. The two bickered back and forth until reaching the inner sanctum of the mushlings, where the gargantuan Elder King of the species awaited them. Through Norman and Pitbull's convincing, they managed to win over the idea of a peace treaty so they could become a vassalized state together, deciding to dub the forest city of the mushlings Sacramento and spend the night indulging in the only activity around, the daily funeral of dead children. They depressingly slept the night away. Also, Norman spent the night showing Button his many spells, which likely began his adoration for the wizard. The next day, the group, including a few mushlings and one of their hostages, Skoxub, then traveled backwards to Noblin territory to inform Crunkle of the great news. Baron Foong waited at the border while Skoxub was let free, but the rest of the hostages were to be freed upon the signing of the treaty. Including Button, who had now officially become Norman's apprentice, the 8 moved onwards to meet with Chief Crunkle, but instead were greeted by Boudica, who had succumbed to the false narrative fed by her god our group had already seen through. Unfortunately, they weren't able to bring her onto our side, and so the most cinematic battle of the whole D&D began. Oh, also, mid-fight, Button had his official gay awakening, upon of course witnessing Norman's even more impressive skills. Oh, also in this fight, the shark realized he still likes violence, and will continue to commit said violence, but not bring it to such extremes as before. Now reborn as the Bull Shark. Yeah, this name didn't really stick, did it? More seriously though, Button valiantly offered his life to the chief to compensate for the loss of his son, and his now dead wife. Did I mention they were engaged? Because they were engaged. I guess fiance? Anyway, doesn't matter. She's dead now. Yikes. Crunkle did luckily still join them at the border for the peace treaty signing, which reads, 1. They will share the forest. 2. No more fighting between the two races is permitted. And 3. If a third party does attempt to encroach on the forest, they shall join forces to defend it. And so the two representatives of each race signed the paper and ended the night in a party to celebrate the newly achieved coexistence. Afterward, Chief Crunkle led the group to the monk holy site where they fought Key, and they beat him. Smog died though, which Anthony forced the poor Noblin to participate in this deadly battle. What the hell, man? And then Cody revivified him to become yet another Noblin. But this time the epitome of Chad, the absolute peak of Noblin physique and sexiness, was embodied in this new form. And after turning back to Anthony, I don't think I mentioned that either, he was a Viking called Tor for this fight because he had to go to therapy, he apologized to Smog. Then they bid farewell to the denizens of the forest and began their trek back to the capital, with Sir Button by their side. En route back home, they were approached by the final three fingers for vengeance of Eeks and Gumpy. And yeah, the fingers got slaughtered. Though Mason, their leader, did manage to chisel Cody's left arm to pieces. Shortly after, Junior popped out of the bushes in annoyance. The ripple effect of that court case could be felt everywhere, especially Junior. Previous owner of all silken otherworldly brew, now not even a part of the company. That's a rather large demotion. After informing her of the sticky snow situation at hand, she agreed to join them to the capital. On the way, the boys made our druid a fully functional, natural-themed prosthetic arm. Once they did eventually arrive back in Vestoria's embrace, something peculiar could be noticed. The country's usual flag was replaced with, Snowstica. Oh lord, she's going full fascist. They next met back up with Wellington and Rippa, yeah, to explain the complications and their next course of action. Here, Anthony became Big Tony and asserted his dominance over the entire room, but Wellington did still speak about the issues plaguing this skeletal mind. Their lack of control over the central part of the city. And what might be in the center of the city? The fountain. Snow likely unknowingly foiled their plans to reach the fountain uninhibited. So now, to Norman's delight, snow is a problem which can no longer be ignored before igniting the last tower. Oh yeah, by the way, Big Tony is the Dawn of Pittsburgh. The man running everything from the shadows was this ancestor right here. And he took a proper liking to the shark, who just so happened to be an employer of the Moretti family. For Wilhelm, this is the first semblance of reality to him. Nothing up to this point seemed to make any sense, so he rather understandably reverted back to his old ways for the time being. Upon further discussion, he discovered his son, Little Tony, or Ant, knew the shark previously. In any case, after a vote, they made their way to melt the snow. So that night, a group of Junior, Sir Button, and the main four decided to sneak into the castle. At the front, acting as a distraction, Big Tony shocked the world beyond the fourth wall and turned into a gaseous form. Because he is a vampire, apparently. What just happened? Inside, before they could meet with the villain, they had to face her strongest soldiers, Silas, the general of Vestoria's army. Anyway, Tony discovered Snow and Yehelovich in full sexual intercourse, and then casted grease on them, essentially lubing them up. In any case, this initiated the combat between the three, well, four, since Casimir the Protector then burst into the room with the others soon to come. A little bit later though, once everyone had joined in the fight, Wilhelm dealt the final blow to the king's bodyguard and non-lethally knocked his ass out via Bible. Speaking of Wilhelm, they heard a noticeable snoring coming from the other room, so he and Cody left to check it out, and there was Finn, or Oswald, but no one calls him Oswald, who had developed a surprising amount of vocabulary, not to mention sheer intelligence for the young age of 3-ish. He and Wilhelm bonded over loans. He is a great father, by the way. Meanwhile, Cody allowed Douglas Rat, the snitch, to leave unharmed, but had him promise to stay out of their sight. While Finn is a boy genius, they still require someone to rule the country before the young prince becomes of age, and who else but Wellington, Wilhelm, Rippa, Jesus, and Norman. Also, Snow, who isn't dead. Yeah, she totally sleuthed her way out of this one yet again, mainly since the council would have no idea how to run a country without her. The next day, on the big stage, the Vestoria 6, name unofficial, I just think it sounds cool though, council was established. Then, after having Snow announce that to the country, Littlefeather dropped the bombshell on Cody that he's gonna be a dad. Also, speaking of Cody, he then gave a speech of warning for the future soon to come. When they activate the last tower, a sure danger is to befall them. So what else but an army from all the allies gathered thus far to coalesce in the capital for their return. Then later on, the first official council meeting ensued. Lots of financial yada yadas were discussed, and after that they left Rippa with basically total control of the city. Then the boys, Washington, Boneslaw, and Button traveled eastward to the port city to meet the Hull Guardian sailor Wellington set them up to meet, with the purpose being to reach the final tower. Captain Kern. Good old Kearney then imparted on them some much-needed exposition. The X marks the spot for a key to the temple containing the holy site itself. Then, big moment, an enemy pirate ship approached. Oh no, it's Blackbeard's ship! No Blackbeard, though. They tried to convince his second-in-command, Big Gun Beretta, they are, in fact, allies with the fabled pirate, but to no avail. Good few minutes pass, and what do you know? All of Beretta's crewmates were slaughtered, save for one, and the captain. So they commandeered her ship, and left the unsinkable two to... well, sink. After and during which, the crew indulged in Blackbeard's great orange stash, where Kern revealed the treasure thereafter was his grandfather, Captain Colonel's. And at the X, they will find an ancient artifact of great power, one of the shards of Vestoria, as well as the key. When they finally landed, they snuck through the jungle and appeared at a clearing. Visible was a scaly triceratops, a feathery T-Rex, and a human fleshy with human hair on his head and a bob-cut abomination of a raptor all hanging out in the center of the field. That's terrifying. Before anything, Blackbeard was seen, searching for that same treasure. Then, Cody made the T-Rex into a friend who told his dino friends to stand down to avoid the would-be combat. After everything had settled down, Blackbeard explained he defeated his own god. Then they dug up that treasure. Kern had first dibs since it was his key that opened the chest, and upon touching the sole piece of treasure inside, an orb, no key by the way, his body began surging with power as his eyes burned blue. And of course, unable to contain the sudden and great surge of overwhelming strength, Kern was corrupted and a battle began. A battle resulting in all three dinosaurs' deaths. The last dinosaurs. They're now extinct. Again. And Kern was murdered. Good job, guys. Then Wilhelm decided to part ways with his ring of confidence he picked up all the way back in episode 1. Something I assumed was so insignificant it wasn't even worth mentioning last time. Doing this completely reverted Wilhelm back to his mental state from episode 1. Memories and all. Basic rundown of what this ring does is supplement one's personality with a more confident one. But it's usually only supposed to be worn in times you may need a little boost. But if you forsake removing it, the new personality consumes you. So, when Wilhelm took the ring off, his personality and memories reverted back to what they once were. Over the next few minutes, thankfully, Wilhelm's memories did begin returning. Before parting ways once more, Blackbeard showed them a peculiar golden temple on a nearby island, and soon bid them farewell as he sailed off to deal with the Whitebeard problem. His words, not mine. On the grounds of the golden temple was the most unexpected old face, Mayor Dalewin, in monk robes. Let's just ignore him, just like they did. And then they entered into the Cleric Tower, the tower which wasn't even locked in the first place. George Washington inserted his pendant and out came Clarissa, ripe with rose-tinted promises. Though the crew were of course steadfast in their beliefs, so the final Holy Sites battle began. This was honestly a half battle, half therapy session for a few of the members. The therapist helped Cody to realize he truly desired to be a father. Norman to realize the thing he loves about this world the most above all else is that he was finally able to make a real connection, and that he can use that knowledge to forge other real connections and friendships, and also that he'd never give up again. For Button, he finally got that reality check of that love he possessed for Norman broken down to intense idolization, a berating from his lack of self-respect and the severe power imbalance of the two's relationship that he should talk to the wizard from the point of an equal, not an idol. Soon enough, the battle took to the skies, floating platforms and all, with Clarissa in the center. All Final Fantasy-like. At last, though, Norman's magic missile would pierce the skin of the cleric goddess as she was defeated. And soon a boom echoed on the horizon. And at this point, they all knew the fountain was ready. Unfortunately, Blackbeard stole their ship, so they shoddily created a new one and had EL Team 6 pull them to the mainland. After making it to the capital, they reconvened with all their previous allies and friends, like Broken Wing, Corey, and most importantly, Little Feather, whose egg appeared to have hatched. The human-avian hybrid lay in her arms as Cody got down on one knee and confessed, "Oh my god!" Also, Briggs alive, who actually didn't resemble the old Brick at all. He had shed his outer shell upon the assassin's attack sent by Snow, and was now simply a human boy. Also, Pulmo, Wellington, Ripa, Balloon Man, just imagine every ally in there probably here. Even Dulag is here with his new law degree, Shark bonded with the sun again, but after all the communing, they walked into the fountain and were soon embraced by a white light. Greeted by Palladium, they became engrossed in mid-conversation of what three wishes to take, when suddenly the god became very impatient, so despite that god, they instead decided to yap, and yap some more until he became more and more frustrated until eventually the god straight up just disappeared, revealing the true god of this land, Vestoria herself. She had been sealed away by Palladium and the other usurpers, perpetuated and extended by the game they'd all been partaking in. Every time the 3 wishes were granted, it used up the celestial power that had been building up over time to further her imprisonment. So, basically, the rejuvenation of the true god's powers, with the fountain's resurgence and wishes being granted, prevented Vestoria's seal from breaking. With that being said, the gang must now defeat the remaining usurpers left alive to finally revive Vestoria into her true being. Anyway, I'm not covering all that. I think this is a great jumping off point for if you want to get back in for the finale. I think this is a great place to start and complete the final episodes with. For completion's sake, let's just say whoever wants to go home goes home, whoever doesn't, and they defeat all the usurpers, and everything's all copacetic. Yeah, this is gonna age terribly if they get TPK'd, but hopefully not. Anyway, gang, have a great day or night. Like this video if you liked it. Dislike it if you dislike it. If you want any more recaps like this one, follow me on my YouTube page. Subscribe to me, I'm tired. And don't forget to stay trash. Peace.